is set, and we are not going to mess around. We're going to get right to it, and we talk with Sean Salisbury, and then we'll have Ryan in Sacktown to talk about the Kings game 2 of a 7-game trip. Sean, man, I don't even know where you want to start. It's great to have you on here. You tell me, where do you think we should start? I mean, there are 3 subjects here, all right? You can go NFC, AFC, or we can go officiating. Where do you want to go?
You can also go broadcasting. The difference between Greg Olsen and Tony Romo is enormous. It is.
Thank you.
It's the difference between Tom Brady and a guy who is last in the league about 2 years. I don't know what. Listen, and I'm not even gonna. We shouldn't even start there. But I like Tony. You've heard me say it, and I'm a fan. I know how hard the job is.
He rules the game.
He I can't. How many times he just stand? It's like he went in ill prepared. It's the weirdest thing. Didn't know a guy didn't know Blake Bell was inactive. Hims and haws, and really doesn't say anything anymore. He's Captain Obvious. The energy is not there. I mean, it's the craziest thing. It is the weirdest thing from when he first got it to now. How he has gone. It's like a quarterback that goes from throwing 4 interceptions his first year to leading the league. Yep. I mean, it's completely gone the other way, Grant. Honestly, it's odd to me because I don't know if it's stardom or he just mails it in because he knows he can. But then Greg Olsen teaches, explains. I'm glad Fox has the Super Bowl because we're going to get a better broadcast from Greg Olsen. We'll just get better analysis. He teaches. He's energetic. He doesn't step on the play-by-play guy's toes. He's not Captain Obvious. He walks you through it. He lays out. He lets the broadcast breathe, and he gets it. He doesn't have to ball wash everybody that he likes. He's just fair and honest and good. And like I said, I am flabbergasted when I'm saying what. I've never thought I'd actually say I needed to turn Tony down.
I'll tell you something else. I'll tell you something else, and you don't have my perspective, but you have a different perspective. You have the perspective of an analyst. I've done play-by-play my whole life. I've worked with a lot of different people in hockey, the NFL, and the NBA. And when you do not have a good analyst, or you have an analyst that oversteps their boundaries, meaning that they talk too much, what have you, it affects the job that you do. I've said this now for over a year. I think he's really brought Jim Nance's game down as an elite play-by-play announcer. Jim Nance is the staple of CBS. I think he's made Jim Nance go from a top-tier football announcer to a guy that I think it's really affected his game. I think working with Tony Romo has been bad for Jim Nance.
Yeah, Jim has been one of my favorites for a long, long time.
Me too.
Class, pro, style, grace.
The best.
A humble gentleman.
Yep.
You know what's crazy? When I watch and listen to the broadcast now, I feel like the game's getting in the way of them going and playing golf. I know that I do. It feels like that the game's the secondary thing. And Jim's always been perfectly prepared. And he had to correct Romo. And Jim's still prepared, but it's almost like it's a little too casual for my liking, honest to God. Terrible. There's a difference between relaxed and casual. Well, and you're exactly right. Like on teams, when the weakest link, and here's the craziest thing. The weakest link has become Tony. It's Tony. But I'm not alone in this. And Grant, and I try to be fair. And matter of fact, sometimes I probably give a little extra leeway because I like him. And I think when he came in as a rookie and all that energy, and he still was cheesy at times. But he, quite frankly, his fastball, it's a guy who went from like 100-mile-an-hour fastball to 84, but can't throw strikes. I don't know if he just decided he's just going to show up to work. But the ill-prepared, the rule book, Gene Steratore talked more than he did, at least about the rules. He was clueless on that. He kind of just, and Jim, man, Jim. I mean, Greg Olsen, I don't like to compare people like this, but Olsen teaches me.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk below the expert, and he doesn't talk above the amateur or somebody who doesn't know. He makes football. He is, I'm telling you, he's the gold standard right now. Well, Aikman is too. Those two, that's the gold standard in football. In college, it's Herb Street. I get that. But I don't know what happened to Tony.
I'll tell you what else you say about Greg Olsen. I think he has improved so much this year. I mean, from game one to where he is now, where you got to remember Troy Aikman's doing this for decades. What Greg Olsen has accomplished in a very short period of time, relatively speaking, in the broadcast booth, to me is phenomenal. He's a natural.
Quantum leaps, and I feel like already, like after this game, that Greg's already preparing for the Super Bowl with 2 weeks. I swear, I believe on the plane home that he was writing notes down or looking at tape on a computer and does his homework. And I think his partner is really good too.
Yeah, Kevin Burkhardt's good.
Kevin Burkhardt's good, but I think also Olsen raises his game.
I agree.
Raises the intellect on the broadcast because they're so complimentary. It's just weird.
What happens next year? They got Tom Brady signed, sealed, and delivered. What happens if he retires?
I'm going to tell you this. I can tell you this. Greg Olsen is nobody's number 2 broadcaster.
There you
go.
If
that's what you want to do, then you know what? If I'm CBS, I'll go pluck him away if I'm CBS, and I'll make him the number 1 because it is not close. In those 2 playoff games, not close. So and I listen. We compliment. Nobody's above criticism. Whether you have a bunch of Emmys or you're making $15 million a year like Tony and doing all these commercials. Tony Romo I don't know what happened to his game.
It's terrible.
But it's not just one. It's been constant, Grant. And you know when you're supposed to save your best for this time? Their last broadcast of football of the year.
Awful.
It was their worst. It was their worst broadcast. Terrible. And I hate to be critical, but I thought it was awful. I did. And thank goodness we had good quarterbacks, but the broadcast at times needed muted.
All right, so let's continue to be critical. I thought this whole weekend, if you want to go back to the Lakers-Celtics game, and at the end of the game, that call, and this has been an unfortunate repetitive pattern for NBA officials this year at the end of the games, but then we see the officiating this weekend. And Sean, let's first of all acknowledge, we understand it's not an easy job. And I don't know about you, Sean, but I don't expect perfection from my officials. I really don't. But I think it's getting so out of hand, and it is going in the wrong direction that it is tarnishing the games. That's how I see it.
No question about it. Let me put it to you even simply, and more simple than that. And you and I both know officials in both these sports, guys that I have the utmost respect for. Shit, I don't want to do it. And you know what? They don't want to play quarterback either. That's their job as a professional.
Correct.
And that's my job as a professional or a broadcaster. They were horse shit in the game. In the later game. They were awful. They became the star of the show, and for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not diminishing either team because they missed calls both sides. They made the hit out of bounds was the right call, but they made calls and they talk about bringing the broadcast down. They were awful. And you cannot roll guys out there in a game of that magnitude. And Sean, if somebody was Sean, you know how tough it is? Yeah, I know exactly how tough it is. That's why I wouldn't want to do it. But guess what? Once again, I want referees to have to show up like players do and answer to why. Not just a guy that's a spokesperson. I want to know why you made these calls and why we can't correct them to get them friggin' right. Hell, if we have a quarterback in the San Francisco game, the first fourth down completion to Devontae Smith was a blatant miss. They got to get that corrected. But the worst part, hell, and going back to real quick, and it was made right here, and it's a great point. Listen, with no quarterback, Greg Olsen made the broadcast watchable in the first one, even when there was a blowout because they didn't have a quarterback. That's a hell of a point by, I guess it's Carr 5. Yeah, no question. But I thought the officiating, like we ask our players and coaches, Grant, and our broadcasters to have their best, that we expect their best at this time. It's the Final Four. I'll tell you what, if that's the officiating we're sending out for the Super Bowl, we may want to take 2 weeks off and cancel that damn thing.
Yeah, there's the proper message right there. Thank you very much. All right. Now let's get to the games. First of all, I think I'm in the minority based on all of the reaction that I'm seeing on social media. I don't feel bad for Joseph Osai. I'm sorry. It's football 101. Patrick Mahomes wasn't even close to being on the playing surface. That is just a mistake that I see every Sunday in the NFL for players that do not have discipline. And do I wish him ill will? No. Do I want this to haunt him for the rest of his life? No. I'm not wishing any harm on him. But, I mean, his penalty could have cost his team the Super Bowl. And it wasn't close, Sean. It wasn't borderline. It was just so far out of bounds. I just don't get it. But that's one aspect of the game. What did you take away in its totality from the Bengals-Chiefs game yesterday?
Well, I'll start there, Grant. If you think about it now, you are not wrong. And I listen. The guy's going 100 miles an hour. I get it. I'm with you. I don't feel sorry for him now. He was distraught. He'll never forget it.
Yep.
And my key is not that it happened now. I need to know what he's going to do next. Because in truth, the best defensive football player for the Cincinnati Bengals for 59 minutes and 52 seconds of the game was Osai. He was their most active player. But there was a controllable play that he took football IQ out of it and got overly zealous. And you can't. If you know the thing of the situation of the game. And listen, we've all screwed up. I don't hate him for it. And when I heard the audio clip of one of his teammates saying, "It's my last game, you know what? Fuck him."
Exactly.
The guy who said it. What a horseshit teammate that is.
That's the worst.
Let us all be critical. You walk your ass in that locker room, you put your arm around him. He's a 22-year-old kid and say, "Listen, you made a mistake. We're all going to hit we're all going to screw up at some point. We got to rally around this because it's a long off season. Screw it. We gave up 5 sacks in a game. We let Mahomes run around and throw a 4th down play and hit an end zone, all this stuff." So it wasn't one. That's just the one that sticks out. So don't be a horseshit teammate. And he was a horseshit teammate for doing that. But in media, it's called football. He made a horrible mistake because that's a 60-yard field goal if they don't get it. And let's just say there was 8 seconds, no timeouts. Let's say they go for it and hit a 5-yard completion and get out of bounds, because even if it's inbounds, the game's over. They can't get lined up or spike it. So, and the kick barely went over. That kick's not going through from that, and we go to overtime. But listen, shit happens. I don't hate the guy. He's not the reason Cincinnati's not going to the Super Bowl. The problem is that he just gave a referee, and it was the right call, and it was a blatant out of bounds. You just can't do it. Does that mean we need to berate him? No. But we call it, if a kicker snap hooks a field goal in bad weather at the 25, you know what we're going to do? We'll rip him to shreds, even if he made 5 before that. I mean, it's the nature of football. And I hope this kid comes back and plays better, and next year makes the greatest play ever on a diving interception. But listen, played great. He made a bad mistake at the end of a football game, but it's his teammate's job to rally around him. I thought it was a horseshit move by his teammate to call him out like that.
All right, so let's get to some of the particulars of the game. I think that last week the Bengals, they were able to move the ball and push the Bills around with their backups on the offensive line. I thought that was so key yesterday. You could see that really caught up at them yesterday, their offensive line play. I thought that was a real key.
Well, back-to-back years, Grant. Cost them in the Super Bowl last year.
Yep.
And they got it done. At times, they looked overwhelmed. It felt like that when the Kansas City Chiefs wanted to get to the quarterback, they could, and they did. And that's cost them every bit as much as the hit out of bounds by taking sacks. In one series, it was 2 or 3 plays in a row. Listen, we had elite players on both sides, and Burrow obviously is so clutch and makes throws, and Mahomes 5 straight AFC Championship games, another Super Bowl. And a guy who was hobbled. Now, listen, and the broadcast wore this out too. Mahomes wasn't hurt as bad as people, at least in the game. He moving just fine, thank you. That had no bearing on any incompletion or any of it. Now, in between, it might have been sore, but momentum and adrenaline gets rolling. He'll have 2 weeks. He'll be 100% healthy for the game. It seemed to me like he was in the 90s in this game because he played well enough and did some great things, got out of the pocket and delivered the football. So, to me, sacks. And you can't give up those big returns on special teams. The one before the drive that set it up, the guy returned it out to the 40 or 45-yard line. You cannot give up those kind of plays in clutch, so we can blame special teams.
Take the ball out of bounds. For that.
Yes, and you got to make a tackle. You've got to make a tackle at some point in time. So, and even on the Mahomes scramble, Grant, another thing about refs, you're blatant holding. And then you can talk about the hit on Burrow earlier in the game. There's a lot of things we could go to, but listen, we can't diminish or shrink that Kansas City played their ass off and did it. Their defense was really good.
Yep.
But they're going to have to run the ball against Philadelphia. I'm sure she'll tell you that. Because if you thought Cincinnati Bengals could pressure you, you're in for a real surprise with that front seven that Philadelphia is bringing to the damn table. So, listen, the team won, no excuse. They played better when it mattered and won. The refs didn't help anybody. At some point in time, I thought, man, they love some Kansas City Chiefs, but I'm not going to be that guy who says they had it in for Kansas City. That's horseshit too. It's just unfortunate that it flipped that way. And Cincinnati came up short again, at least Super Bowl last year, AFC Championship. They'll be back. This will not be the last time Mahomes and Burrow play against each other.
Yeah, no question. All right. The NFC, let's face it. I mean, you're not winning. As soon as Purdy gets hurt, the game's over. Plain and
Finished.
simple. Plain and
and
simple.
You got and first we got to get back to we have a third string quarterback. The NFL doesn't want it. In the offseason, they're going to re-put it in. They have to, grant the rules committee. You got to have a guy who's there in case this happens. You can't win a game with if the running back had to go. If McCaffrey was going to play quarterback, Purdy could not throw. Screen game, and that was it. Philly knew it. Hell, Philly might have beat him anyway, but the game ended when Purdy was out for good. Listen, I know Johnson value. What it tells you when a 10-year veteran has been on 13 teams, that he can make a play or two, but you can't trust that he's going to handle that. And what a horrible environment to go to for him.
The worst.
Brutal, the hard place to play.
The worst.
Best team in the league, and you got to come off the bench. But you could tell his eyes were big and dropping snaps, and they weren't going to push the ball down the field. He's a 10-year veteran. He should be a little more calm, but those situations are miserable. I can't hold it against the kid. And then he's not really a kid anymore. He's been in the league 10 years, but 13 teams lets you know that in clutch situations, it's probably not the guy you want to have to go with, but God bless him, man. What a horrible environment to have to go play in against that team.
Can you help the viewers understand what may have happened leading up to the week? Would a guy like Josh Johnson get any snaps at all in practice?
Not many, because you're still trying to get Purdy all the look you possibly can, since he's not a 12-year veteran in the league. Think about this. Johnson's played more games than more. He's about the amount of snaps than Purdy, probably over. Maybe not according to snaps, but what's he thrown for almost 3,000 yards in his career over a 10-year career? I mean, he's been in the league obviously 9 years longer, so he's seen more defenses. But in the week like this, I would imagine he was Jalen Hurts the whole time, running around, mixing in that and throwing, and then maybe a snap or two in 7-on-7 when Purdy, just to get him a break and an easy one, but he would not have got much work at all. I've been in those situations. You don't, but you have to just be prepared for a situation like this. And what a bummer for San Francisco. You're already on your fourth quarterback. You got to go back to your third, try to go back to your fourth, but you can't. Then you go back to your third, and then a running back has to come in for one play, and Purdy couldn't throw it, so Philadelphia could tee off the entire time on the run game. So it's a bummer. That's football, but we got to put the rule back in where you can have a third guy, a quarterback standing on the sidelines, so you don't have to go to the running back. The NFL doesn't want that embarrassment to happen, meaning where you got to play a running back. They'll go back to that. But Philadelphia may have won the game anyway. But the game was over the second Purdy was out for the entire game.
Here's what I don't understand. I don't understand the lack of respect that the national media and really a lot of fans in general seem to have over the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know how you can watch that team and come up with any other conclusion other than they're a really good team. They're good. I don't understand why they don't get more respect. I think they're really good. I think they're a damn good football team.
Well, they're the most complete team in the NFL all year long. All year long. Jalen Hurts. Now, can we please stop the is he a franchise quarterback? Would you stop? The guy has done, and I love the fact that he works quietly.
Yep.
He doesn't blame anybody from Alabama when he moved on to for not getting to this round or that round. At no point in time has the guy made an excuse. He just plays and leads and wins. Yes, he's a franchise guy. I have no idea, because right now, for my money, you could take Kansas City, because if you pulled Mahomes away from it and say that Mahomes obviously he's the best quarterback in the league, but tell me where the advantage for Kansas City over Philly is. Name it. On either side of the ball. Their line's good, but Philadelphia is one of the best in the league. They got 2 or 3 Pro Bowlers. Their running game's better in Philadelphia. Miles Sanders is in a Pro Bowl. Now individuals, Chris Jones and Kelsey, but defensively on most given Sundays, Philadelphia's overall defense is better. Both coordinators are good. I mean, it's the Mahomes, but you know what? Jalen Hurts doesn't have to take a damn backseat to anybody with the way he's operate and run and pass. Mahomes is just a freak show that dresses in a phone booth, and so is Kelsey. So listen, and Andy Reid's the best play caller. So you got a great matchup, but you're exactly right. I don't think it's disrespect, Grant. You know what I think? I think because they've got such passionate fans and it's Philly. Honest to God, I do. You know how you get lumped into it? What's not to like about Jalen Hurts? You know, when your leaders, I mean, they're energetic, the fan base, they're willing to talk it. Their defense will get after you. I think it's the fact that it's Philadelphia and they have this reputation as a fan base that kind of permeates into their team. And so they get it's kind of like guilt by association. And I know a lot of people don't. I love their fans because they're passionate and they know they care. Now they get like all fan bases. There's a group that get out of hand, but you don't like them, Grant? No, Philadelphia fans?
No. When I'm from fucking New York, I'll tell you who really loves them. The fucking people that work at the Empire State Building love them because they lit up their goddamn building in green and white. Okay, so that's what I'm pissed about being a New York.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's no question. And I'm not that kind of stuff. But my point is, just as I understand if you're in New York. Listen, that's like the Yankees and Red Sox, same way, right?
No, so but I get it. Their fans are great. I understand. They really are.
They're passionate. No, whether you think they're great or not, they're passionate.
And they're not.
You know, sometimes they are. They are as our New York fans, and they get into it. So I'm one of the few that even as a road team, I went in there. I know how tough I played with Old Vet. It's like, shit, if you're faint of heart, this is not the place to want to have to go play. But I think that's it. But you're right. We're all talking like, oh, Kansas City's got to be a heavy favorite. Not my book. I would make the Eagles the favorite. I think they're the better team all around. It's the Mahomes factor.
Yep. All right. Let's talk about some other things. It appears, and again, I don't know what you believe and what we should believe, that Aaron Rodgers may be on the move. If he is on the move, okay, where do you think would be a good fit for him?
Jets.
Why?
I've tried. Well, he's got a guy he's familiar with. They won't have to change the lingo from what he learned in Green Bay because if Hackett gets to put in what he wants to, Nathaniel Hackett will put in the stuff he took from LaFleur. And even though it didn't work for him in Denver, and neither did Russ Wilson, Aaron Rodgers is better. They are in a division that, while Buffalo's good, but Aaron Rodgers, their defense is good. They've got some good weapons at wide receiver now. The thing that's held them down, quite frankly, is the quarterback position. And it has sucked for a couple of years. And as good as Zach Wilson may be at some point in time, he can't stand in the ocean and drop it in the ocean. Hell, it would miss the ocean if he was standing in it. That's how inaccurate he's been. Now, he can throw it from the beach and hit the middle of the ocean, but he still missed. The problem is he can throw it a long way. He can't quite hit the target. So he's inaccurate. Aaron Rodgers can. So it's a lot of red tape to get there. Draft picks you're going to have to give up a lot of money. But if you want to buy time for a couple years, I think Green Bay's gotten stale for him, Grant. I do. I think Green Bay's gotten stale. I think he's gotten stale for them. I think it's time to see if Jordan Love can play. I think Brady and Rodgers are both going to still play, and I think both of them are playing somewhere else.
All right. I don't know about salary cap issue. I don't know about draft issue.
Right.
But Tua in Miami is still in concussion protocol, and we're almost in February. All right. So you would have to say that his future, we would have to say, is somewhat in question. All right. Could you imagine Aaron Rodgers with those receivers down there in Miami?
Well, yeah, and everybody keeps speculating that it was Brady. Now, Brady's apparently that's out. Brady to Miami's out. Hell, can you imagine Rodgers? Because a lot of similarities from the Hackett, LaFleur, McDaniel, they're all from that same young school of offensive-minded. Hell, yeah. Now, if you're Aaron Rodgers, you'd rather go to Miami than New York because, damn, you got more weapons. There's no question. Who do you want to give up? What are you going to give up? But as far as in Green Bay, I think for both sides, it's amicable and you love each other, but you become friends now instead of lovers. You know, like marriages, hey, we become friends. It's time that we mutually part and go about our business and see if Jordan Love's the answer for the future and if Aaron Rodgers can carve out a couple more years. And he can.
You and I differ on this. You think Tom Brady could step into a good situation and be really good, don't you? I'm very skeptical about that.
Well, here's what I think. I look back, Grant, I think, first off, and I'm not making excuses, he's not above criticism, and we ripped him for his game against the Dallas Cowboys. He was way off. But I think about divorce, kids, lost 15 pounds. I'm not making an excuse for him, but that's got to affect anybody that has a pulse. Now, go look at the numbers and look at Brady. I don't know if a guy's washed up that almost pushes 5,000 yards again. I mean, that seems odd to me on a team that couldn't block squat. Receivers were inconsistent, and they had no fucking run game, and they fired their offensive coordinator. So do I believe if you sent Tom Brady to Miami or sent Tom Brady to Kansas City, he's not going there, but to Kansas City.
Right.
Do I believe Brady'd throw for 5,000 yards and 38 to 40 touchdowns? Yeah, I do. I still think he's got that in him. And I also know that when we bury him, there's always something left with him. Now, is he the same guy he was accuracy-wise 2 years ago, 3 years ago? No. But do I think that Tom Brady is washed? No. Do I think he's going to win the MVP again? No. Do I think he can get a team in the playoffs? And if you protect him with a good offensive line, do I think he's still dangerous? I do. I think he's better than Carr. I can go through a bunch of stars. I think he's better than Russ Wilson. Denver would have won more if Tom Brady's their quarterback. So do I think he's got game? Yeah, and I think he has something to prove in his own mind. So it makes players great. So if he plays around, I don't think he's going to a team that can't win. I think he's going to go somewhere he can, and he'll put up numbers again. The question is, if it's the Raiders, they're not Super Bowl ready because their defense isn't Super Bowl ready. But Devontae Adams will catch a bunch of balls. So will Waller. And if they sign Josh Jacobs, he'll run for a bunch of yards. But Brady can still play. MVP, no. Pro Bowl caliber on a good season, I still think he can play at that level.
What do you make of Kellen Moore leaving the Cowboys?
I would have done the same thing. I think Kellen Moore, I think he's bright, and I think he's good. He's not ready to be a head coach. Hence, that's why he hasn't been hired yet. I think he needs more seasoning, but he's bright. Listen, I'd rather be coaching Herbert at this time than I would Prescott. I'm just telling you, I would.
No,
they got a lot of weapons. I think he's going to a gold mine if he plays his cards right. But if he will coach to win as opposed to build a resume, he may end up being a head coach right away again. This may be a one-year stop. So he didn't get demoted. He got fired because he wanted to move on or mutually parted. And for that to happen and Mike McCarthy to call the plays again, he went from this to maybe a better situation. So I think he's really good. I think he's bright. I'd like to see him commit and understand. I'd like to see him pick out an identity. He's got one with Herbert, but they still got to run the football. And he needs to understand that in order to win in this league, you better run it, and you better be able to do it in January. You're not going on. He's going to be fine. And he didn't take long to land a job, did it? It's a good thing. But I think the Cowboys needed to move on too. Okay,
so you think the Cowboys need to move on. What impact do you see that having with the Cowboys offensively and Prescott, who is extremely erratic?
They better bring in a guy who understands the mechanics of the position, but not kisses Dak's ass, but understands. Here's the problem, though. If Mike McCarthy is going to stick to calling the plays, Grant, you're not going to get the best offensive coordinator. Why? Because he doesn't want to go in there and say, well, I don't have a lot of – like, for instance, let's just say Cliff Kingsbury. Kingsbury could call play. He was at his best as a coordinator. Why would Cliff go there? He's getting paid head coach money.
Right.
Because he had a bunch of years left on his contract. To go there to Dallas, only to have Mike McCarthy say, coach the quarterbacks, I got this. And you're like, well, damn, that's a double demotion from where I was 3 months ago. So, but a guy, if there's a guy that in waiting that can call, that can be there and assist Mike, and if Mike says, okay, I finally trust him. But Mike McCarthy was at his best. He tried to do this in Green Bay once. He gave it to Tom Clements. It didn't work, and he took it back. And they got better. So I think Mike, listen, they all cut their teeth calling plays. It's probably good, but here's what scares me about it. Mike isn't a very good game manager how it is when he doesn't have to call the plays. Now he's going to have to manage the game and call the plays. I think Mike's a better play caller than he is game manager. I don't think it's going to affect Dak, but you better get a quarterback coach in there that spends time with him and knows how to teach the mechanics and get him back confident because, God, you can't turn the ball over as much as Dak didn't expect to win.
All right, what did you think of Frank Reich and Carolina?
Frank is loved in the league because he is just a steady guy. I think the Chargers wanted to hire him as a coordinator, as did a couple other teams, but Frank knew that there was possible quarterback opportunities. Head coach opportunities. I think it's a good hire, Grant. I do. I think he's solid. I think he's a steady guy. He's not a yeller and screamer. I think he's good, and he knows offense. He's been really good wherever he's been. He just ran into the last couple of years. He didn't have quarterback play. And when that happens, the team doesn't usually do well. And with all the injuries they suffered, it's time for them to get back going. But I can tell you this, with the Colts, it's time for them to get back going with all the injuries they had with their thing. But with Carolina, the Matt Rule situation, all that, the key for Frank now is to put together a fantastic staff. That's going to be the key, and to get the guy who he believes can win under center, because he'll be fired again if they don't get a quarterback. But I like the hire. I think it's solid. It's not sexy, but it's solid.
All right, final question.
And I think Steve Wilkes probably should have been asked to at least stay on staff, because I thought he did a good job. He's been kind of dogged in two places, in Arizona 1 year and there. I think, well, there you go. Riley says the same thing. I think Steve Wilkes is a good coach. At some point in time, somebody's going to give him a legitimate shot to finish that thing. But he's going to be coaching somewhere. He needs to be on somebody's staff.
All right, crystal ball, gut feeling. What do you think would be the best fit for Derek Carr?
I know some people have mentioned here. It's not here. He's not going to take the. He's not going to. He was on a better
Houston,
offensive team. Yeah, in Houston, exactly. You know what, Grant? Maybe if they don't pull Rodgers or Garoppolo, maybe it is in with the Jets. It may be. Think about it. I don't know. Would New Orleans possibly, because they're not going to roll it back with Jameis Winston. So maybe it's there. But I believe Carr needs really good players. Now, a really good place for him would probably be Miami. Honestly, with those weapons and a run game, he could probably thrive there. I just don't think he's winning a Super Bowl. So a team like that, and Carolina maybe, you know what? I think Frank would work good with him. I do. I think Frank and Derek would do fine, but they're not going to win a Super Bowl. But Derek Carr,
Miami's a very easy media market. You go to New York and you have all the other aspects of being in New York. It's night and day. No
question about it. And that would probably be an interesting situation in Miami. Yep. He'll be well coached by McDaniel, and Derek is better. He's not going to carry a team. He needs to have help carrying a team with him, and he has plenty of weapons in Miami and good coaching to do that. But somebody will take a chance. I don't think it's here, but maybe Carolina, maybe Miami, maybe the Colts. But I think you get Carr for a year or two, but also draft a quarterback. But I don't know if Derek Carr wants to deal with that competition. We already saw what happened when that came on.
Oh,
so We'll see if he can handle the pressure.
Have a good week, my friend. Thank you.
You too, brother. By this time next week, the Texans, by this time Thursday or Wednesday, the Texans will have hired D'Amico Ryans, I think. I believe so.
Okay.
I think he's going to get the job. Yeah, they love him. I think it's a formality now unless something crazy happens between now and then. And we can discuss that on Friday, brother. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, buddy. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Okay, bye.
Good stuff on my show in Salisbury. We are brought to you thanks to New Works Plumbing of Sacramento. Locally owned for over 20 years, New Works has a fix for you. Just go to sacserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. That's New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. Kings, will they bounce back tonight? They're in Minnesota. They lost 117-110 on Saturday. Ryan in Sacktown here with us. How are you, buddy?
Doing great. How about yourself, Grant?
I am doing well, and the Kings have now lost 3 of 4, trending the wrong way with 6 games remaining on this road trip. What are you seeing?
Just general inconsistency, Grant. The past 5 games, they have an 18.9 efficiency differential, which is the highest in that 5-game stretch in the Western Conference. The Kings for the season are typically right around 12.9. So it all starts with offense. We all know the defense is going to be terrible at this point. And looking at the numbers, the offense is what is dragging it right now.
Yeah, which we didn't think we would see. I don't know if they're just in a rut or what it is, but this is another huge game for Minnesota tonight to climb back into relevance in the standings because, when you're chasing a team like Sacramento, each game counts as 2. So let's see what happens. The Kings' inconsistency, as you said, from quarter to quarter is mind-boggling to me. It's not just within the game. It's not just game to game. It's within the games.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I don't know, what doesn't make sense, Grant, is the combinations on the floor are used to playing with each other. So at this point, maybe you look at switching up some of those combinations. I don't expect him to get a lot of minutes, but Deontay Burton from the G League team in Stockton was signed to a 10-day contract. He's a 6'4" guard. Play with it. Maybe Monk comes off the bench first instead of Mitchell. See what works because they've got to try to find something that clicks on the offensive end.
All right, we're going to be on at halftime. I know you're not. Happy birthday to your bride, as you got a evening planned, and good for you. So I'll be doing the show solo, both at halftime and after the game. All right, so when we look at this road trip, we figured that this would be the more difficult of the games because you go to San Antonio, you go to Indiana, you've got Houston twice. But again, 3 or 4 losses. What do you think? You think we're going to see the A version of the Kings tonight, or do you still think we're going to see a mixed bag?
I'm leaning a little bit towards a mixed bag.
Me too.
Hoping for the A though. It's funny. The Kings are for the season 700 winning percentage on one day's rest. So I don't know why everybody's talking about them being tired. Even it carrying over from the Raptors game. I don't think that's it. It's Maloney. They just have to come out and work on that consistency, Grant, like quarter to quarter, shooting good shots, get to the free throw line like they did. So we'll see what they do. Gobert's still questionable for tonight, but if the Kings can make their 3-ball, they're going to be okay, I think, tonight.
All right, I want to bounce something off you. Sean had pretty critical comments for Tony Romo. I've had very critical comments for Tony Romo, not just recently, but for a couple of years. Are you bothered by Tony Romo like we are?
Yeah, it's pretty much unwatchable, Grant. It's funny, Sean said not prepared. And that's something that didn't really jump off the page to me until he mentioned it. But Tony, he just doesn't know when to lay out. He has to have an explanation for absolutely everything. And it's the most obvious things in the world. You could point it out. Sea-Dog could point it out. My 8-year-old could point it out. He ran the ball. So I don't know what happened to Tony, honestly, but, I'd rather not talk about how bad Tony is. I agree with both of you. Greg Olsen is absolutely amazing to watch, and I'm glad he's got the Super Bowl.
Hey, buddy, you have a good time tonight, and we will look forward to you joining us for the Spurs game.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Grant.
All right. Take care. Thank you very much. And again, we will be on at halftime and after the game as well. I want to thank Bennetts, 2 locations in Roseville and in Sacramento. Roseville on Eureka Road, the corner of Howe and Fair Oaks in Sacramento. Prime seafood and steaks. Their steaks are phenomenal. I love the redfish. It's all there for you. Bennetts, huge King supporters. Check them out. They'll have a 3rd location coming soon to Blue Oaks Town Center in Rockland. All right. Don't forget, halftime. That's when I'll be back next. You take care. And we'll talk to you in a couple of hours right here on If You Don't Like That with Grant Napier. Bye-bye.